Welcome to the Deserto CDL show, where every single week we are going to be going over the best and the worst that has happened to all 12 Call of Duty League teams. Now, I'm so excited to introduce to you Pacman and Enable, who will be joining me for each of these. And we're going to be ripping folks apart and hyping up who needs to be hyped, but we're not here to always be nice, and I'm actually really excited about that. So, guys, how are you doing?
I mean, I'm doing wonderful. And I'm always nice, Katie. I don't know what you've heard about me, but I'm like I'm the nicest person in the entire team.
Never says a single spicy thing. Not a single spicy take ever.
Never.
I'm doing great as well, and I'm actually never going to be nice in this show. That's my whole MO. I'm just going to cook.
I love that. It was a long week of Call of Duty, and some teams came out relatively unscathed. Others have yet to get a win. Dallas in Group A sitting on top after that 3-0 win over LA Thieves, the final match of Super Week. They will end at 40 CDL points, tied with LA, but with a better map record, they will sit on top. As for Group B, Atlanta FaZe and OpTic Chicago, no surprise in those 1 and 2 spots, with folks like Seattle and London sitting at the bottom of Group A, and Toronto and Florida sitting at the bottom of Group B. And as for the bracket, how that all plays out at the major, you'll have folks like Seattle, Mutineers, Ultra, and London fighting for their lives in matches on Wednesday. And folks in winners like Thieves and Guerillas. Guerillas looking for some sort of upset, looking to survive in winners, but more of a stereotypical spread you'll see, but who knows? Folks like Paris, folks like Minnesota may be able to make a run. I think kind of if you look at the top two in both of these, I'm not overly surprised that, again, you're going to see Atlanta, the Optics.
I mean, these standings at the top aren't surprising at all. I think it's what we saw towards the bottom in the mid-pack where a lot of the teams underperformed that you wouldn't expect. Toronto, Minnesota, stuff like that. They didn't perform how you expected them to. The top teams did, of course. And that's why, I mean, they've proven themselves to be consistent over the years.
Honestly, I was most shocked about Toronto, John, because I thought I had them as like a dark horse essentially in the league, especially with how hot they start out. But they're not looking too hot. They're looking like they're one of the worst teams in the league, actually. So my prediction was wrong. Sorry, there's one team I know we'll probably talk about it later in the show that I was surprised about, and that's Paris Legion, though. Because that's who I had as the worst team in the league going into. I mean, I
think most all of us did.
Yeah, they're essentially the scraps. No, of course you did. No pun intended, of the league. You know, they were the last team put together, and they looked really bad to start off the season. But you know, they could have potentially beat FaZe. They dominated Florida during the Super Week, so I'm kind of excited to see how they improve as the season moves on.
Well, yeah, I mean, Classic has had some incredible games. Aqua is looking really solid. I think Fire can be shaky at times, but I totally agree. I looked at them at first and I was like, Godspeed to y'all. And then I watched the series and I was like, all right, well, damn, maybe I think they certainly have the potential to upset people if they want to. They get close.
Yeah, and I think in terms for Fire, I think, I mean, when you first become a professional, sometimes there's like a little learning curve, a couple of bumps in the road, but once he gets comfortable with the team and his spot, I think he'll be fine. I think he's pretty talented. Most of his stuff seems to be mental, which is a good thing. He's not just out there getting, rocked on the map. So
it's always good when you're not getting absolutely rocked on the map.
We've already mentioned London, but I want to go back to them because right now, whatever they're doing is not working for them. Zero, stuck across the pond, can't seem to get over to America for the time being. Parasite, I don't know if he was the play. Why Enable did they pick Parasite as a say to maybe grabbing someone from West R or a challenger scene or someone who's up and coming? Why do you think those decisions were made?
Katie, I honestly can't tell you because
I'll put you on the spot immediately.
And it's nothing against Parasite. You know, he's a decorated player. He's a COD vet. I don't know why they decided to pick him up. And it's not like he's bad in Cold War by any means. I mean, he does have a .86 currently in the
Not
league.
Ideal.
But like their whole team's getting absolutely bodied every map.
Yeah.
But I don't know why they wouldn't have went for a new player, right? A rookie in the scene that is raw and has a lot of potential. Because you kind of know what you're getting from Parasite. You know, he's not going to be a superstar, and that's what London needs. They don't really have anyone that can take over a game consistently. Like, I guess Dylan would be the one, but he's not.
Dylan's been out so far this whole year. Sorry, Dylan.
It's not Black Ops 4. You know, he's not able just to use a grapple. So I don't know why they decided it. I really don't. But you know,
it is what it is right now.
Making the off-season moves that everyone questioned. It's making all the people who I don't think in general that the people are incorrect, but now it's making them look more correct to get rid of Scraps and Wuskin and to make this roster change. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like who's running the show?
Whose team is this?
Don't even get me started on that, because some of these cats don't know how to build a team. They just are just throwing names in a hat at this point.
I guess.
Well, some of the management doesn't seem to have any idea, certainly.
Well, of course not. I mean, listen, like John said, there was a lot of issues in the offseason with this team, right? Scraps and Wuskin, they're moving on from them, and, you know, them saying one thing. Obviously, there's two sides to every story. And you look at Scraps, obviously Wuskin's isn't in the CDL right now, but you look at Scraps on Paris, like, maybe his side was right, and London just is fucking clueless. Pardon my French, London, or... You know, but
well, I mean, yeah, it's and on top of that too, you have Parasite, which I think doing his best, all things considered. But then you have Dylan, who just doesn't necessarily seem like he knows what he's doing on the map, coupled with Alex, who also isn't the best. Alex kind of feels like when he's on, he's great, but he's consistently not on. And then Shawnee Pacman, who seems solid to me, but I just don't know what you can do when you have at least 50% of your team seeming to consistently have very shaky maps.
Here's the issue that they have that every bad team runs into. They don't have one superstar slayer, and then the rest of them can all shit the bed at any given moment. So that's just the fact of it. And they haven't won a single search and destroy. So you can't have a team with a bunch of players that can shit the bed at any given moment and then not be able to win searches. Like your team, I think it was Shawnee and Dylan have like 0.6s in search and destroy. That's just not going to get it done. And then they don't have anybody who you're like, all right, this guy's just going off. And from time to time, it's Alex, like you said, but most of the time it's not, right? Like most of the time he's just very average on the map. Yeah. Dylan's supposed to be that guy. I was trying to defend him for the longest. I'm done with that. Like he switched up his team. I thought last year he was getting baited a lot. He was going in first, doing everything he could. Yeah. He was the most impactful player. But now it's like, come on, dog. It's been 2 years.
They might as well sub me and you in for S&D. No, you know, I'll give you at least a 0.7.
I'm getting a map.
No, that's why I don't understand what London is doing on the management side, just because Shawnee, if you look at the overall KD, he's been their most consistent player. He's their main AR, right? And he's solid at it. But why would you have Parasite running a main sub? Or, you know, even the flex role, like he needs to be an AR, and obviously Shawnee can't really run a sub either. So it's like, what do you do when you play the Dallas Empires? You know what I'm saying? And the Atlanta FaZe, like you have no shot. So it's tough, because I think the only way this team will ever be successful with this 4 is if they just get on the same page team wise, and their teamwork is out of this world, because the players aren't horrible, but they're not spectacular either. You know, they don't have anyone who can take over, like John said. So it's just going to be tough to consistently win games, especially if you don't have a S&D win your own 7.
Yeah, and when their teamwork's not on, we've seen them get absolutely rolled. I saw New York beat them in the fastest series that I've ever seen in my life. They got 3-0'd
all of our time.
Yeah, like if you had things to do, that was a series to watch. You were in and out.
Hey, they respected my pick'ems though, because I picked them to lose every time. Man.
There you go. Right, so there's some positive.
Pick'em respect.
Maybe not for them, but at least for all of us. But let's move on. Let's climb up the ladder a little bit. Let's talk about New York Subliners. We touched on them a bit before as well, but New York, a really uncertain start to their season with those swaps. Diamond Khan coming in, Asim there. Obviously, Zuma having to step away, and Hydra still being stuck overseas as well. I think got his visa now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But New York looks really, really good, Enable. So when you look at them from where they were at that big question mark to where they are now, how do you feel about that team?
Excited, honestly. Like I said, it's got to be tough for them mentally, especially someone like Clay, right? He had an idea in the offseason. The game went to 44. He wanted to go to New York. He wanted to have this kid Hydra, wanted to play with Zuma. And now all of a sudden he's going to the first major of the year and he's playing with a kid named Diamond Con, Mac, Asim. Like, it's nothing against those guys because they have looked fantastic besides the first series versus the Thieves. But it's interesting because I don't know much about Mac or Diamond Con. I know Mac came into the scene a little bit in Modern Warfare, but 5v5 COD, whatever. But they look good. They easily could be 5-0 right now, without a doubt. They could have won the series 3-0 versus LA Thieves, and they
were like a gunfight away from winning that control like twice.
Yes,
Who could
and they should.
They were one gunfight away.
And so I think they have a lot of upside. I'm specifically interested to see how Asim does for the rest of the season because he's always been underrated in my opinion. He's been that type of player that is always the entry man. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to open up the map, make it easier on his teammates. But he never gets any love or never had any love in the past. People thought when Hydra comes over, he's gone. He's the first one to go. Yeah. And I saw like a tweet from Matt Cat that had me laughing where he was like, it's Asim stats for like the series. He was like, Asim heard Hydra got his visa and said, "You lot need to figure out who he's because he's not taking my spot." But like he's playing at an unbelievably efficient level right now. I just hope he keeps it up.
Yeah, so do I. I would agree with that too. And Pacman, when you look at Asim, I would totally agree with Enable, right? He doesn't get a lot of love, but he's been one of the best players and realistically had like a standout series against Minnesota. Those first two maps, he had a 5.17 KD.
Didn't he die like, I forgot what it was.
6 times, I think.
6 times, yeah. That's unbelievable. And I mean, the only loser out of the whole entire New York situation is Hydra because apparently he was supposed to be next up. I've never seen him play. I don't know if you've seen him play. I've never seen him play, but apparently he was supposed to be next up. Hit Asim's spot was his spot, but the issues that spot is not Hydra's spot anymore. That is Asim's spot. So I mean, like you just said, he looks fantastic. I don't think we can rave enough about how good Asim is playing right now. I just think that the team itself seems to be on the same page. They're the team that's winning the most offensive side control rounds. Everyone says that offense on control is super, or defense on control is super OP. New York's proving them wrong. Everyone just needs to get their teamwork up like New York. I mean, like a couple kills, a couple other decisions. They got 3-0'd by Thieves, right? But it wasn't. That was the fakest 3-0 I've ever seen. That was so close.
They could have won 3-0.
They could have won every single match, right? Every single map. And obviously, they're right there to win that Dallas series. Asim playing phenomenal. New York looks really great. I mean, I'm excited for their future. I don't know what else to say about them.
So then what happens to Hydra in this situation if you're New York?
Well, it's weird to me, right? Because before I touch on Hydra, like their team randomly seems like it just works, it just clicks. But at the same time, knowing a little bit more, like you guys have probably seen Clay talk about, you've probably seen the rant that he had after I think the LA Thieves series, but he also has explained, like he had a meltdown like a couple days ago in the Super Week on the team. So it's like I don't understand how they're playing that well when in Clay's head they're also fucking up a lot. You know what I mean? Because they look like they're a top team. And for Hydra, I think now this might make things a little sticky. Because, if you go into the first stage and New York's horrible, right? They're sitting there at the bottom with the Ravens. It's like easy. Okay, Hydra's got to come in. We're not playing well. But it's like if you're playing well as a team and, whether or not individually you're playing well, which they all are, like you're still having success as a team. And so like if he comes in and maybe takes someone's spot and then what if it doesn't work out? And then like, do they try and swap out a different player for him? Because I know Clay really wants to play with him. Right. I'm worried about what happens in the future with that. Unless they just bomb, unless they're just kind of in a honeymoon phase right now. But I don't know. It could be scary real quick, I think.
I think I've always thought it's unhealthy to have someone at the back of any player on any team. Like it's just not a good environment to play in when any second you feel like you can get dropped for X player behind you, and that extends to all types of competition. I mean, you're an Eagles fan. You saw Jalen Hurts. They talked about him all the time, and what happened? Carson Wentz played like
exactly.
dirt.
I hate that. I hate that quote where people are like, it's competition. You know what I'm saying? Like you're fighting for your spot. Like no, because if you have one bad map, then you're in your head like, oh, dude, how just take my spot, dude? Like that happened to me last year. I came back after I was benched. Came back, I was hot, like ready to go. You know what I'm saying? Whoo, dropped a stinker. First series back, I got the call. Literally 10 minutes. Sam was like, yo, so it's not me this time. But we're playing with
It's not me this time.
We're playing with Panda again. You know, but like in my head, I knew that I was kind of on the hot spot or the hot seat. And so I don't know. I just don't like that. I think it needs to be made known. We're obviously not going to know, but behind the scenes, like you either got to, when Hydra can come over, he needs to be in the spot no matter what, like instantly,
right? Exactly,
and clear cut. But you don't teeter around it and like, oh, maybe let's scrim with Hydra a couple games this week. What?
So he's transparent.
That's the worst thing ever.
So you think I suck, but like we're kind of doing good. So you don't want to fully just drop me. Like,
right, like for some reason, whatever I'm doing works, but you don't have any faith in me.
Yeah, you have no
confidence to scrim a couple times. Oh, we're just scrimming the Surge, so he's gonna play this one. Like, you just wait over there, wait for me.
Yeah, I'm getting the reps. I'm getting the reps versus Atlanta FaZe and shit, and he's getting Seattle Surge. It's like, of course he's got a 1.6 in this scrim. I'm going up against a BZ. Like, cut me some slack, dude.
Also, I feel like if Hydra really is that guy on the map, and they do. New York's in a spot where they can make moves because no matter what with the nature of competition, these teams are going to need players. Like London Royal Ravens might want him. Somebody might want him. I don't know how well he speaks English or whatever that might be, whatever the situation. But they can make moves around him or Asim or whatever it may be, where they can move contracts around. I just don't think you should have him sitting by either one of them sitting behind the other.
Yeah,
potentially a chemistry implosion if they're not transparent with what's going to happen.
Without it,
and I mean,
I've seen it happen.
I think that would be tragic, right? Too, because again, we're just talking about how good New York looks. Just so to see something behind the scenes potentially shatter all of that. I mean, that would be tough, right? Because I look at New York and I'm like, you were so close. It could have just as easily as we said been a 3-0 to Thieves on their side. They could have 100% beat Dallas in a 3-0. I would hate to see that potential dissipate.
But I also see it from what Ian said from Clayster's point of view. You got to think about it. He was just teaming with Simp and Abizi, and then his next subset was Hook, Ender, and Shotzi. Like those are pretty good. Might not be what he wants to see. Like,
exactly. Like nothing against Asim and Diamond Kind of Mac, but like Simp and Abizi. You know what I'm saying? Like Shotzi and Hook. Like, that's why I hope Asim, because he blew my mind. I think he's one of the best players in the game right now. So I hope he keeps it up because I want him to be successful and kind of get the respect that he deserves. But it's going to be a weird situation because they are doing so well, but Clay's been very public on these are young players. He's kind of had a meltdown a couple times with them. And so I have to feel like he really wants to team with Hydra, excuse me, but he's just not going to say it right now, obviously.
All right, let's talk about your team, Enable LA Thieves.
Hey.
They were undefeated until they went up against Dallas and did not fare quite so well, but an excellent start to the year, all things considered. They had a much rougher start in Black Ops 4, and still y'all ascended and got back-to-back wins. LA Thieves, Enable. What's going on with them? I thought when I was looking at them, great, you're 4-0, this is awesome, but I feel like until you face a Dallas, how are you going to fare against those tip-top upper echelon teams? In the preseason game against OpTic, they got smoked. So where do you see your team right now, especially when they went up against Dallas, that tough challenge, and they fell short?
Yeah, I mean, completely unbiased opinion. I think it's clear that they're a top 4 team in the game right now. But I am worried about a few things. Like their SND, in my head, was going to be, at least going into the season, their worst game mode. And while they're not doing bad, and they're 3-3 in the league, it just seems like something is off with their teamwork in S&D. I mean, in general, but more specifically in S&D for me. And that is what needs to be good when you're a championship caliber team, because every top team has all the superstars, right? Like Empire, FaZe. Your respawns are going to go back and forth. In this series with Empire, they had a close hard point. I think it was 250, 215 on raid, which, less than a hill apart. S&D went down to 6-5, they choked. And then the Control, they choked, whatever. But you got to be consistent in S&D. You have to. Every great team, every team that wins, especially multiple times in a year, is fantastic at S&D. And it's just something that I think, I don't want to say or point one player out, but I think Temp needs to kind of get on the same page with Slasher's philosophy. And John could probably agree with me when it comes to that, because it's one of those things where you got to just you swallow your pride and listen to Slasher at the end of the day if you want to be successful. And that's the only thing that I'm worried about is their attitudes with how they're doing. They're going to be a top team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are. I think with that, like with Slasher's personality, you can be right with what you're thinking on the map. Like your thought process about it could be correct, but Austin's gonna have his team doing what he wants them to be doing, and it could also work. Everyone just needs to be on that same page. Otherwise, it becomes like, I don't want to say World War III, but there's times where the arguments are just like kind of circular. So
but I mean,
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like,
team with him.
Yeah, you're like, bro, he's right, you're right. It doesn't really matter. Just do the same thing. Just be on the same page, and it's like, and it could just go on forever. And they just need to make sure they're on the same page with that.
Yeah. So
At least
essentially,
their starting point is a lot higher than it was the last 2 seasons. In both Black Ops 4 and Modern Warfare, their team started out
bad,
really bad,
Horrible.
really bad. Yeah. So the starting point being as high as it is now, I think bodes well for the LA Thieves going forward.
Believe me.
Someone needs to swallow that ego, and that's probably got to be Temp.
Yeah. I mean, because Ken and Tej have already been through the system, like, believe me. But believe me, when Black Ops 4, when Ken wasn't familiar with Austin, like, he was packing his bags ready to go. He was hitting me up like, I can never team with Slasher, bro. This motherfucker's annoying. And that's how it is. I've had plenty of arguments when I team with Austin where we were both right, but Austin swore he was just a little bit more right than me in the situation. So it's like, it hurts a little bit, it hurts the ego, but it's just like Austin has the Jordan mentality, and if you do just swallow your pride, because he is right damn near all the time. He's one of the smartest COD players for a reason that's ever played. So if you can drop your ego and take what he's saying and understand that, like, he just wants you to be the best you could be, the team to be the best, shit will go well, and you'll be a top team. But if you don't, it's going to blow up. It's going to crumble. And that's what I'm scared about for this team, is if they have to make a roster change at some point, because it's just not clicking.
Well, we'll have to see. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but a much, much better start this year, all things considered. Now let's move to the only undefeated team in the league, 12 teams, Atlanta FaZe, the only one to be able to say they are 5-0 going into the major. They've had some potential upsets in the works for some of those matches, but Pacman, they look solid and the record shows it. I think sometimes it felt like there was some hiccups in terms of people like Simp and Abizi adjusting from 2 years of 5v5 down to 4v4, but it doesn't seem like it's mattered too much because they haven't lost a series.
Ian just touched on it, right? So they're going to split some respawns. Everyone's human. You're going to split some respawns. What makes them so scary is that not only they are dominant at Surge, they're not just good.
Yeah, they're
dominant at Surge. So every single time they clutch up, like against OpTic, where Abizi pops his 3-piece, they win that super close game 4 where they probably should have lost. They win it. They go to game 5 and absolutely run OpTic over, right? They're just so good at search and destroy that you have to capitalize on every mistake they make in the respawns. And usually it doesn't work like that for the top teams. You take 1 or take 2 and you've won the series. Against FaZe, it just does not work like that. I think their record is well deserved. They're solid in the respawns, maybe not perfect to where they are yet or where they're going to be at. And that's the scariest part. Because once they figure that out,
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
this is this is the
like,
least
damn, they're good.
the least surprising prediction I think that anyone could have made. Them going undefeated and them, being the best team in the game right now. They have some of the best players, most explosive players, and no surprise that they're phenomenal S&D. The respawn is going to be good. I agree with you. It's definitely not. They're not at their ceiling. They haven't really hit stride in respawn, but because their S&D is so damn good, it doesn't matter because, like, Cellium will take over one game and win your respawn. You know what I'm saying? Like, Simp will do that. That's what's been happening. I think the most surprising thing for me is how good this team is right now. Right? They're 5-0. They're the best team in the game, in my opinion. And Arcitys isn't playing too hot. Arcitys is one of the best ARs. The last couple of years.
AR, for sure.
Easily. And it's not all about KD. I know that it's not all about the stats. But, John, you know as well as I do, when you are the main AR on your team, you're supposed to have a higher KD, consistently than your subs because you're in the back.
Just in general, you're in the back. You're shooting. You're slower.
Yeah, you're shooting motherfuckers who aren't even shooting at you because they're shooting at Simp and Abizi. And he has a 0.9 right now, 0.92, which isn't horrible by any means. And the rest of his team is playing fantastic. But if he steps it up, which he will, it's like how the hell are you going to beat Atlanta? Because right now you can maybe kind of take a respawn. If you get lucky already, if Arcitys steps up and like solidifies himself as a top 2 AR in this game, it's like there's just no weaknesses on the team at all. Like you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like normally with every other team, especially if they're a top team, you're like, oh yeah, well we could take advantage here. It's like FaZe, you're sitting there, it's the hangover meme. I'm trying to think like it's just nothing.
It is weird. It is weird because I can't think of a time where Arcitys has struggled since.
Same. That's why I was surprised.
In Infinite Warfare, and I can't remember a time where he struggled since. Maybe the team struggled, but it's never been him. I want to say it's because of the players around him. So it's kind of, I mean, he has such good players around him. The subs aren't dropping 1.2s and one. You know what I mean? They're running around and dying. Like Ian said, they're going in first. So there might be less free kills out there for him. I'd have to watch him specifically. But he isn't playing as well as we know he can, and that might be make up like that little bit of difference in the respawns. Hopefully, he picks it up because I think once he does, we're looking at a dominant roster like last year. Really, we're already looking at the best team in the game. We're kind of nitpicking here,
without a doubt.
At Arcitys, KD.
I mean,
Arcitys, like KD isn't everything that matters.
He's sitting there probably feeling great though because he's doing his thing. You know what I'm saying? He knows. I'm sure he would agree. He knows that he's not playing his best Call of Duty right now, but with how good his team is, he's like, oh, once I get in rhythm, like who's fucking with us? Like no, it's fucking with us already.
Right? Oh, if I look at someone like Arcitys, I go, you are always reliably good, so I'm just waiting for you to get there.
Yeah, and
usually dominant. He's usually pretty dominant too. That's the thing.
Yeah,
like I'm sure he's going to get on track, and it's it is nitpicky, like John said. It's got to be hard when Simp or BZ are running in front of you and popping a 2-piece instead of not getting any kill, but getting someone weak, so allowing RC to get the free 2-piece, but they look good. They look.
It's
really
not
good.
the worst problem to have if your subs are running around the map like that and getting all the kills. But we do need to talk about a part of FaZe that people aren't super thrilled with right now. Caused a little bit of a slap fight on Twitter recently, but Cellium and snaking. Abizi had a tweet that folks took great issue with. Weren't too thrilled about it. But Pacman, Cellium, snaking, it's annoying. People are still going to do it, though. How do you feel about this?
Listen, I've felt this way for years now, and I mean, I've been playing Call of Duty since Call of Duty existed, and people just snaked and don't complain. Yeah. But here's the thing: if a mechanic is in the game, doesn't matter what title, what game, Call of Duty, Halo, Counter-Strike. If a mechanic is in the game, and people are competing, they're gonna do it, and they might not. It might be frowned upon or whatever it may be. But they're going to do it. If it helps him stay alive to crouch a couple times and before he stands up and shoot, he's gonna do it. People did it for a championship in Infinite Warfare. I remember Splice won one back then, and people were like, they only won because of snaking. But at the end of the day, they won. So other people started doing it back. they can complain all they want, but everything stands. I think it's a game issue, a game mechanic. If you want it to be fixed, you have to go to the source, and they need to nerf crouching, nerf the way it works, nerf the mechanic in general. I don't really have an issue with what Celium is doing.
It's tough because I have an issue. Like I have an issue with it because, yeah, like you said, the only way it ever will get fixed is if you go to the source, right? And you have to code it, and that's way above my pay grade. So I don't know how, I couldn't even tell you the least on how to fix it. But the thing is, and you know, I've seen Slasher talk about it, him tweet about it, is it was, at least from when I was playing, John, like there were a couple instances where it was a thing, right? I remember like the EG team in Infinite Warfare. It happened. Splice, like you said as well. But once it got brought up, it was GA'd essentially. And it wasn't running rampant. Like there were a couple times where, you know, maybe I'm weak, I drop down, reload my gun, and get up, but I wasn't just sitting in the same spot, snake up and down. And then I think Celium kind of made it popular again to Snake when he got into the league. And I don't think he deserves all the hate, but he made it popular, and now all the new wave of players that are coming in are just They're like, you could do it, phase up, whatever that fucking quote is. and like, and now it's just hard because I've heard many different things, like FaZe stopped doing it, like with Celium, and then it was still happening to them, so they were like, fuck it, we're gonna, you know. I don't know, because I don't talk to the players behind the scenes like that, but it's just like, come on, at the end of the day, every pro player just wants to play the most competitive game. Like, I don't care what anyone says. Obviously, you might want certain things in the game if your team's better with them, certain things out if your team sucks with them, but like, you want it to be competitive. I just think it makes the game cheesy, not enjoyable to watch as a fan, and it's got to be annoying to play against. They need to get it out. As simple as that. And
yeah, exactly. But see, my issue isn't with, all right, obviously it's annoying to do. You shouldn't just smash on the buttons and do it over and over and over as your only method of getting kills. But doesn't it take that one time where someone does it to you on a rotation or in an important fight where you're like, what? I'm doing this shit now. Why am I losing to someone doing it? And he might have his reason. He might have been reloading. It might have been bad timing on my part. Blah 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 blah. But the fact is, you did it to me. You got the kill. You won the map, and I'm sitting here like, why the hell am I? Why am I not using it? And that is the most difficult thing, is because, you know, it could happen to you, but it could be just like a timing thing, like the person was just drop down reloading, you know, and they weren't spamming it. So you can never, no one's ever going to be happy, because it's going to happen no matter what, even if it's by accident. Right. Like, no matter what, it will happen. So I definitely don't think Celium deserves all the hate that he's been getting.
He's not the only offender.
Exactly. Oh yeah, he's
the most egregious. Yeah, perhaps.
I mean, I could tell you in Black Ops 4, he was the motherfucker who pissed me off the most with it. But, you know, damn near everyone does it. You know, there's some people like Austin who he holds himself to a higher standard, so he won't do it. But everyone else does it, even if it's only once or twice a game. That's all it takes to change the outcome of the game. You know what I'm saying? And so
everyone's like, all right, gloves off, we're all doing this shit.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's especially too, like, so I think someone tweeted this. If you're at Champs or somewhere else, and you might be doing that unconsciously or whatever else, but if you're winning the game, you guys mentioned Splice too, like if you're winning and this is for something major, who's really gonna care about that?
It's like, fuck it, it's not against the rules. What are you about to do?
What are you gonna do? Complain? That gets washed away by history real quick. I promise you.
On Twitter.
What are you gonna do? Not scrim me? I'm on the last event. We cashed out. I don't care. Don't scrim me.
Somebody was throwing danger close grenades in Advanced Warfare. I won't say who, but they won the chip. That was heavily frowned upon. They won the chip.
That shit got washed away. People were like,
that's washed away with history. The check still clears. You know what I mean? So what are you gonna do other than complain?
Yeah, and honestly,
I'm not there for that.
Things like that too, like fans, what do fans remember? They're not going to remember that. They're just going to remember that their team won. There's still a few teams that we have not talked about yet, for better or for worse. The likes of Toronto, Minnesota, OpTic and Guerillas, but I would love your guys' quick thoughts on these teams before we move on. So, Pacman, I'll start with you first. What are your thoughts on Minnesota?
Minnesota, their hard point is just lacking, right? So they've managed to get by playing really strong search and destroy to this point, but their hard point, I believe they've won 2 of them. One of them was against London. I expect more from this team. This is the team that I had at the top of the rest of the pack. So the top 4 I have is LA Thieves, OpTic, Dallas, FaZe, with pretty much everyone else. And then if you would ask me my next team, I would say it's Minnesota, but they haven't looked the part. They need to play a lot better in those hard points for me to believe that they can go on and win championships.
Ian, you pretty much agree?
Yeah. I do. I mean, it's tough because I know I kind of touched on how good your S&D needs to be if you want to consistently be a championship team, but you also can't be you can't slouch in respawn, and that's where Minnesota's struggling because, like John said, their S&D is phenomenal. They're like 5-1. They look really good at it. One of the best S&D teams right now. But like, if you can't win a hard point, would you say they beat Paris? That was their only hard point win.
Or they beat London.
London, yeah,
and London stink.
If you can't win a hard point, you're losing 2 games in the series, no matter what. Like, so it puts you in a tough spot. And it's not like they're just not beating the top teams. They're just not beating anyone at a hard point, besides London, who is the worst team in the league probably.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't won a series, so it doesn't say much if you're...
Exactly. So I think they will get on the same page because I do think as a player, it's a lot easier to improve in respawns than S&D because you get more reps in it at the end of the day. These guys practice respawn 100 times more in S&D throughout the year. So they're okay, but I think they have a lot to improve on. They have the potential to be a top team for sure.
They have potential, but they're only okay. What about Toronto? And how do you feel about the Squirrels, Toronto Ultra?
With Toronto, Katie, it's so tough because they looked so good to me in the beginning. They beat Florida to start the season out, to start the stage out. And they had a very close series versus OpTic and FaZe, but then they just kind of crumbled. And I just think this team's going to be inconsistent. They have potential to do really well in a stage in a major, but I just don't think you're going to find any consistency from them with the players on the team and how they're playing. They're just too hit or miss right now.
Toronto had me convinced, right? They had me convinced that they were up there, like.
They
yeah,
look
I'm like,
good.
yeah. They won 1 match though, right? Like, they had me convinced. I'm like, all right, I gotta see if Cammy and Kleenex are really the truth. They at the end of last season, everyone's like, these guys are next up. It takes me a long time to truly believe it. I started to believe it, and then what happened? They let me down.
Bit you in the ass.
Yeah, they let me down. I'm like, yo, where'd my boys go? Cammy still looks pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. But get these guys some help. I don't know. They're not closing out anything. They're not clutching up any series. So, yeah, they beat Florida. That's a great start. But Florida's obviously not good either. Then they lose to the 2 big teams, Atlanta, Chicago. And you're all right. They have the easy portion left. Paris and LAG. Lose both of those. You just can't do that. You just can't. You can't lose both of those. And they're supposed to be a good search team to go to Game 5 in both of them and lose both of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like maybe the pressure's starting to mount up to these guys. And just doesn't look good.
You got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat if you're a championship caliber team. As simple as that. And they did it. It doesn't matter if they choked, you know what I'm saying, or they went Game 5, round 11. It doesn't matter. You still lost. So it's worrisome for them because they could be really good, but they also could be bottom of the league team.
And right now, unfortunately, a bottom of the league.
Yes.
They will be going into that major in an elimination match, but Guerillas, let's talk about them. Another team we really haven't touched on at all. So, Ian, I'll start with you. Guerillas, where are you putting them out right now? How are they doing?
I'm surprised with them. I am. Going into the year, wasn't expecting much. The players on the team, they're not they're not horrible. I don't want to sit there and call them dog shit, but they're not, besides App, no one really has the potential to be a superstar in the league at any point. They're solid players. They're kind of like all role players, essentially. But I did say, or I did watch them play recently against, who was the team they played against, John? They just played, they won. Was it
They
Toronto?
just beat
Oh, it was Toronto.
Toronto. They just beat Toronto.
And listening to the listenings and everything, it seems like their teamwork and their communication is really good and it's improving, which I think is going to be the bread and butter for them moving forward. You know, I think that was a huge reason why Assault and Silly and App and EG back in World War II won champs and they did so well, is because their teamwork was phenomenal. So I think this actually could be a dark horse team moving forward, but I don't want to go on record saying that, so maybe cut that. Because like they have the potential, but I
want to sit on the fence.
Yeah, let me get a couple more games in to see how I feel about
Would
them.
you put money on them?
Hell no, absolutely no. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did well, you know.
So it's hard for me to knock a team that manages to get through winners. Like, you got to do what you got to do. They're starting in the winners bracket at the major. It's hard for me to knock it. But at the same time, if you were to tell me what team do I want to go up against that's in winners bracket, without a doubt, I'm going to pick LAG. Without a doubt, like, that's where you want to go through. It's not like they're scary in any given game mode. They're average at hardpoint, maybe a little below average at search and destroy, below average at control, but they've managed to win 2 series, taking out Paris and Toronto, both in game 5. I mean, this team is getting by like the skin of their teeth. It's close with this team. Going forward, they have a lot of work to do. I don't know if all that teamwork is gonna. I just feel like when I look at this roster, they need one more player.
You need a legitimate superstar.
They need one star to help in the respawns. Like, App's just not always gonna do it. He's never been that player, but he can do it. I've seen Silly turn up and be that guy that can take over at times, but it's just underwhelming on paper.
I think that's what they're hoping.
At the teams across the league, it's just like it's so hard for them to consistently.
Who the hell is killing a BZ or Simp? You know, it's like consistent.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're hoping. That's what they're hoping Vivid turns into that superstar player. But I just, I don't know. I think he's good. He plays his role pretty well, but I don't know if he will ever evolve into the type of player that they need for this team to be consistently successful.
Maybe it's like that super aggressive type player that if he manages to figure out and learn how to go off, he's going to be one of the more impactful players across the entire league.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's the hardest thing to do, is to be super aggressive like that and manage to go off. So we'll see. I don't know if that's ever going to be the case with him.
All right, let's talk about OpTic Chicago, one of the best teams in the league, looking very solid. We haven't touched on them at all up until this point. So, Pacman, OpTic Chicago, where are they at? How do you feel about them?
OpTic Chicago is just nasty. They're just really, really, really good. And they could easily be undefeated as well. They could have beaten FaZe in that hard point if it wasn't for BZ going off and popping a 3-piece and stopping them from closing out that series. But I don't think any other team has even managed to take them to game 5. They're nasty. They're nasty. I think the only player without a 1.0 KD in hard point is Scump. If that's your issue, you're gonna be all right. Scump's he's been nasty forever. I mean, they're pretty good at search. I remember at the beginning they were getting knocked for not being a good search team because they were losing all their game 2s and then just winning out the rest of the series. But they've managed to clutch up and win a couple of them in their last series after losing. I want to say they lost game 1 to LAG and Florida. Don't quote me on that, but they managed to win both those series 3-1. This team is legitimately nasty, and when they go into any series, I actually feel like they have a really good shot at beating any of the other top 4 teams. And against everyone else, I feel like they're a huge favorite. This team is really scary. I think this is the best that the OpTic core has looked to start a game other than the beginning of Black Ops 4.
Best team in the game, baby. No, I'm just kidding. But, I will say that they look fantastic, especially in respawn. Like John touched on, I think they're the best respawn team in the game right now, without a doubt, especially when it comes to control. And you're never worried about respawn with OpTic. Okay, you know, year after year, they're going to be amongst the top teams when it comes to respawn. It's always the S&D for me with them, because the other top teams, like the FaZe, like the Empires, they can challenge OpTic at least in those respawns, you know? And then that's when you get down to the specifics of, like, the map, because Dallas might be better at this map, hardpoint, you know, whatever. But like I think you said, they did win the last 2 series versus Guerillas in Florida. They lost the first hard point, so that forced them to then win the S&D to not go down 2-0, and then they took the rest of the respawns, which is a good sign. Even though it's not the FaZe, the Minnesota ROKKRs, the other top S&D teams, it's good to see them start finding consistency. It's good to see them start finding consistency in S&D, because that's going to be where they win events. You know, they win majors, yeah. And
well, they seem like one of those teams as well that if they have someone who's having a bad map, say Envoy on Control, you can still rely on them to win, because the team core is strong enough that if one person is not having the best map, everyone else is still able to compensate for that.
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah,
they have some of the most talented players ever on their team. You know, they're
this is what you want when you build a roster. It's the opposite of the London effect.
Yes.
Where all of them could shit the sheets at one time. Everyone on OpTic Chicago can go off. Like, Envoy's one of the best he's been now. If people don't know this, he's been a top 5 player for 3 years now, or something like that. Like, he's pretty ridiculous.
He is.
And then you have Formal playing really well. Dashy is back to playing well after having a struggle last season. And then you have Seth. Like, this team, top to bottom, is super strong.
There's no better feeling than that. If you're shitting the sheets, you're shitting the sheets. Your team's up 100 points in hard point. You hit the scoreboard. Everyone else is going off. You're like, okay, yeah, I'll get in the hill.
Oh, you guys are the best.
You're nasty, Formal. You're nasty. But yeah, so they're going to be a top team throughout the whole year. They will be. But if they want to be able to compete for championships, multiple championships, they just got to make sure their S&D is solid. It doesn't have to be phenomenal, but they have to be able to consistently challenge the top S&D teams. And I think they'll get it, maybe. If not, then they'll probably get third every event. But, you know, they'll be there.
Yeah.
They just won't be holding up the trophy.
We've already touched on some of the players who have had big moments, but we haven't specifically talked about MVPs from Super Week, and there's a lot to go off of. So I know for myself, there's a lot of people that I could mention, Asim being one of them, other folks, even like a Diamond Con. I think in terms of how he's played for New York alongside Asim, he's been great, but there's a lot of people who have done very well. So Pacman, who is your MVP from Super Week?
Mine's not much of a reach. I'm just gonna go with Simp. Simp's leading the best team in the game in every mode. Hardpoint, search and destroy, and control. He's their best player in all 3 of the modes. People expect it, but he keeps delivering it over and over and over, and he's led them to be undefeated. Simp's my MVP.
I'm gonna go with the actual MVP of the week. Okay, someone who you would never think would be considered the MVP, right? Quote unquote. But it has to be Asim. You know, not only because of how well he's playing, literally unbelievable across the board in every game mode. Countless highlight plays, clutch plays already. He's a high impact player, okay? And normally he doesn't get the love that he deserves because, you know, he's in hard situations a lot of the time. He's the entry man and he's not doing well. But now he seems like he's putting it all together, at least so far through the first, you know, part of stage 1 or whatever. I don't even know what the stage is called. Season
Stage 1.
Stage 1.
Stage 1, Group A, Stage 1.
But Asim has been playing lights out. He obviously knows that he has the pressure of Hydra coming over, and, you know, everyone kind of thought that he would be the one getting benched for Hydra. So him doing all that, taking a New York Subliners team, which, you know, I guess you could say wasn't 100% with Zuma and Hydra not being in a starting lineup, to the winner's bracket in the first major. Like, it has to be him. He's playing lights out. He's almost reinvented himself, I think, as a player, which is great to see. But I think he's a huge reason why the Subliners are where they're at. And I think he's going to continue to be phenomenal all year and turn them into a potential championship team.
We've got Asim. We have a Simp, the boring pick, as Ian says.
I could have not watched.
I thought we were trying to be correct out here.
Hold up, Katie. I could have rolled. I could have slept the whole Super Week, the whole first stage 1, slept through it all, didn't watch a match. You asked me that question. Oh, yeah, it's got to be Simp, right? He's got to be frying.
It could have been correct. You could have picked Hook or somebody that's actually doing like nasty. Asim's playing really well.
KD, yeah, you might have to.
said MVP.
KD, you might have to pick Hugh. You might have to talk on Hugh because people are gonna be like, "What? Y'all didn't pick Kyler?"
Yeah, somebody got to say
No,
that.
I mean, to that point, though, he has looked phenomenal. I mean, overall, KD, I think he's leading that with a 1.29. Hook has looked incredible, and that's what you expect from him. I think he got a little bit overshadowed last year by Shotzi and Illy, but he has been an absolute rock star for that team. So I'll be stereotypical, and I'll go with Hook as my MVP then. I think if he keeps that up, Dallas is going to just be continually a difficult team for anyone to go up against. But we have to go to our moment of the week before you guys get too far into this MVP debate. Moment of the week. Pacman, what was yours?
I guess I have to. It's weird because I just argued against him, but I'm going with Asim's.
My MVP, baby. Yep.
He had 6. He against his old organization that dropped him on his neck. He had 6 deaths through 2 maps. I think he died once in the third. Went 20 something and 5 in the hard point just to set the tone for the series. That's an incredible thing.
Unbelievable. Yeah, it's an unbelievable.
And they wiped the floor with them. Like I was stunned for the ROKKR. Like what? Where was this? But
yeah, that New York tweet that was excellent. The New York tweet was fantastic.
To be fair, they dropped their whole team. But
yeah. Hey, but if it works.
Yeah, and I'm like, hey, for that right there, that was the moment where everyone was talking about, and I mean, I gotta give him his props on that game in particular. He went off.
It's a great choice out of you. It's a great choice out of you. For me, Katie, it's got to be none other than my boy Fat Bob, aka TJ Haley. He had the perfect S&D game, 12-0, 6-0 round count. I think that has to be one of the best, if not the best individual S&D performance of all time. I don't care if it's online, it's not on LAN, it's not on the main stage, whatever. He played flawlessly. I think he had
5 first bloods.
Yeah, 5 first bloods, just did everything on the map. And there's been countless S&D games where someone has went off, right? And they've gotten a lot of first bloods, but to have the perfect game in a game 5, that was huge for them. They lose that game 5. They lost to Dallas. They're not in winners bracket, I believe, right? I think. I don't know if I'm just going to say they wouldn't have been in winners bracket if it wasn't for that.
Be confident. Just go
But it was he's known for S&D, but that performance is going to go down in history, I think, as one of the best S&D performances of all time. So it has to be him.
Well, I think personally, my moment of the week, I've got to go with those final offensive rounds on the control from Dallas. Their ability to clutch up against New York and push it to extend that series. I mean, I think you watched it break Clay. Slammed his desk, got up, walked away, lost absolute composure. He was, so close to 3-0ing his old team. So just the clutch factor that Dallas had in that control to extend the series, the moment that happened, I knew they were going to reverse sweep. So I think Dallas's ability to stay composed, come back, and win that series was, I think, a huge moment for me. But we also have to talk about our least valuable player. We've had Asims, we've had Simps, Hoops for most valuable. Ian, I'll start with you this time. Least valuable player. Who do you have?
This one's tough, Katie, because this he's my guy. I team with him. I love the kid. And it just doesn't feel right saying least valuable player for him, but it has to be Priesta for me on Minnesota ROKKR. And the reason is he's just not performing anywhere near his standards, okay? He's one of the most electrifying players in the league right now, in my opinion. But so far, he has a 0.87 in hard point, he has a 0.7 in S&D, and a 0.83 in control. So across the board, there really isn't anything to be proud of out of his performance. And I think he will turn it around, but this team needs him. Priesta needs to be the superstar, and that's why I have him as my LVP, my least valuable player, just because he's not that superstar right now. He's not. And if they want to be successful, he has to be. So it's got to be him, unfortunately. I still love you, though. P-Dog. You're muted, John. John, you're muted.
John, you're muted.
You guys, you, my friend, are Benedict Arnold. P-Dog came through. You guys threw the bat signal in the sky. You guys were terrible. He came
That's
through
what I'm saying.
and started put you on his back.
I was on his back, just
Yeah,
running.
you were getting carried. Carried you up the mountain.
That's
and
what
now
I'm
that you got
saying.
there, you kicked him back down it.
Yo, peace.
You know what I mean? That's mess.
I just know I have so much confidence in him as a player. Okay, and he's playing like a role player when he is a superstar caliber player. And I want him to get back to that, which I think he will, but he needs a little bit more time.
All right, John, who do you got? Your LVP.
Benedict Arnold, I'm muted.
Mine is gonna be Dylan from the London Royal Ravens. Do I feel like he's their worst player? No. Do I feel like he's the worst player in the league? By no stretch. But he has to be a superstar, kind of like you just said about Preston, and he's far from it. Like, he's the guy that's supposed to put the team on the back. He's the guy that's supposed to entry in for them. He's the guy that's supposed to open up the map so everyone else has it a bit easier. He's just not doing it. A 0.9 in hard point, an abysmal 0.6 in search and destroy, the very average 0.9 in control. You're just an average player across the league. And that's not what we need from you. You're supposed to be the best player on the team by far, setting an example, leading the team through both play and vocally. He's not doing it. Like, where is he? It's been too long now for me to give him a pass. It's been 2 years. Personally, I had a bad map and I was getting roasted. That 2 years in a row. That's what I'm saying. And Enable Ian was the same way. Like, people were already on him when he's winning. Ian's over here winning tournaments and people are on his back.
Motherfuckers couldn't get me to pass.
Anything.
I would have still been playing 2 years. I would have been like, hey, every time MW, Enable's still nasty, but.
Exactly, but he can get a pass for 2 years now. I'm not buying it. He stinks, and like he doesn't. And you went
from average to this guy's ass.
And when I say he stinks, I mean to where he's supposed to be. He doesn't actually stink. But if he were to slide up against me, he's gonna rock me.
You know where
he's not sliding against me. Yeah, you're supposed to be up here, living in the stratosphere, and you're down here. Like, battling now with I don't even know who. Like,
do you think, I don't want to carry on too far, but do you think it's because of his teammates? Like, he needs to be in a different situation, like the pacing's off. You know, the rest of his team is like pretty. You have Shawnee, you have Parasite.
So last year I would have said yes, because last year I do actually feel like he was their better.
And he was just he was just kind of held back. That's fair.
Right. But this year he's on the same people that he was with in Black Ops 4. So I can't give him that same excuse. He teamed with Shawnee. They had Wuskins back then, but they had Zed and Alex. Most of them are still here. They picked up Parasite because they had to. Trey would be a huge help to this team, of course, but you can't give him that same excuse now. It's been too long. Like, how much time can he get? I feel like if they're gonna start winning, it has to be because of him. He has to go back from being average or stinky to being phenomenal. I do believe that he still has it in him somewhere.
Yeah,
but
I mean, hey,
he's out of time. He's out of time with me.
LeBron James took Anderson, Vera, Zhao, whatever, to the NBA final. You know what I'm saying? Eric Snow. So if you're a superstar, you got to be able to do it with anyone.
Man.
No, I would agree with that. And I hate to be boring and go with the same one as John did, but Dylan was immediately the person who came to mind for me immediately when we were talking about LVP and just what we saw in Black Ops 4 for him, the incredible moments he had, and then just nothing. And pretty much lackluster for the last couple of years. And yes, as we said, maybe some folks holding him back or whatever it may be last year, but you just need so much more from Dylan than what you're getting. And because of that, and maybe a few other reasons for London, they'll start in the elimination rounds at the major. We want to talk about the major now, guys. We've seen how the brackets are playing out, who's in winners, who is starting out in losers and will face elimination. Those matches happening Wednesday, I believe. 2 matches for folks to spend the rest of their weekend watching the other teams play. So, Ian, when you look at this breakdown, the OpTic versus New York, LA Guerillas, and so on, what are your first impressions of these brackets?
Well, LA Thieves, I think, got blessed going up against LAG first round. I think that it kind of touches on what John said, where, you know, whoever gets them is happy. And I think OpTic Subliners will actually be a phenomenal series. I'm very excited for that. I think that's kind of going to show where the Subliners stand, in my opinion, because they've looked great. You know, I think you could realistically say they should have beat Thieves. They should have beat Empire. And now they get to see how they compare against OpTic, who I do think is the best respawn team in the game. And it'll be a true test to Asim and all the other rookies on the team. So that is a match that I think there could be an upset. You know, I think Subliners, I think they have the potential to do it. But yeah, I'm not really... I'm not even worried about the elimination side of things. Those teams aren't gonna do nothing. You know, I want to see the top 4 teams. That's it.
Those teams aren't gonna do
sorry,
nothing.
I mean,
guys.
come on. You're already starting in the elimination match. You know, they're getting like, what the fuck? Royal Ravens gonna come out and all of a sudden be in the finals? No. All right, I'm sorry. I'm trying. All the UK fans are gonna hate me, but you know, I just want to see the top dogs compete in a tournament setting, not just a league match. That's what I'm most excited for, is to see them all go up against each other.
So we're starting with the elimination matches, right, Katie? On Wednesday, I believe.
So those two, I think, Seattle.
So Surge in Florida. See, it's horrible to say, but I get where Ian's coming from.
You know what I'm saying?
I can predict these, but it's only a matter of time before they're chopped off here, like round 2 to 3.
They got top 8 instead of top 12. I don't give a fuck about that. Like...
I mean, Surge, Florida, it's hard to pick because I look at Florida and I think they look stronger than the Surge, but I gotta believe that.
But they're
Seattle's
both
win
weak.
an important match. Yeah, they're both pretty weak. So I'm gonna go with Surge here just because I feel like when it comes down to it, they're gonna clutch up when they need to against that team. And it's crazy that I think they're both underdogs to Paris going into the second round. That's to me that's nuts, but that's what I actually believe. And Toronto versus Royal Ravens, Toronto's gonna beat them 3-0 because the Royal Ravens stink, and they're just gonna knock out their European counterparts, and that's just gonna be that.
Again, at that point, if Toronto,
and then it'll be ROKKR in Toronto. It'll be what? Yeah,
Battle of the North again. I think Minnesota historically has won the majority of those, right? I think Toronto's won one of them. I think however many times they've matched up, I feel like Minnesota has the lead over them. I'm not entirely sure, but suffice to say, we always like those matches where there's a head-to-head like that. But I think, I look at those and Seattle, I just kind of want to lean Florida because Seattle can't close anything out to save their life. They can't close out rounds. They can't close out maps. They can't close out series. And Florida's not doing great either, but I feel like I just have more faith in someone like a Skies or a Neptune than necessarily Pristini or Looney.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, why do you have more faith in Neptune, who you've never seen play Call of Duty in your life, and has won one series versus guys that are a world champion and a guy that's won championships in like 17 titles? Why did you just say that out loud?
I feel like his teammates on control for the loss of the map. He has yet to do that. I'm sorry, Looney's a great guy.
But Looney was respecting in that series. That was just unfortunate. Before
that,
he
not respecting his teammates in that round. But my point is that Seattle consistent. I throw them out. I could have thrown out Gunless and I could have thrown out Octane too, because I think that team is entirely dependent on if they don't emotionally implode on each other. But when I look at them, they always struggle to close anything out. And that concerns me because, yes, maybe they have a better shot if you think so, John. But they struggle to close anything out and just win a map and win a game. They always need it to go round 11, game 5.
I guess. But, I mean, that's why they're over here in elimination round 1 with playing against Florida. Both these teams
Florida can't rotate on a hard point to save their life. So that's fair. So
yeah.
Who knows?
And when it comes to real tournament play, I got to go with the proven vets that know how to get through it.
At the end of the day, all these teams in the elimination bracket are at the kiddie table. You know what I'm saying? No one Surge could win. Yeah, Mutineers could win. I honestly think the only team in the elimination bracket, at least right now, that has the potential to really cause an upset and shake up the bracket is Paris Legion. I really do, and I know it's crazy to say because it's like. Yeah. There's a lot of very good players on all these other teams, but they just seem like they have the most potential because they're so just randomly put together. You really don't know where they stand yet. With the rest of the teams, you kind of know their strengths and weaknesses, and there's nothing new. So,
all right, then, Ian, Thieves, say they beat Guerillas. They go up against the undefeated team. How do you feel about their chances for that?
No
and lie to
comment.
us.
No
Go ahead
comment.
and lie to us.
I plead the fifth. No, honestly, it's not the matchup that you wanted to get if you were the Thieves. Obviously, you were hoping they would have beat Empire, so they could have at least already been in round 2. But at the end of the day, you're going to be playing against another top team, whether you're playing against OpTic, whether you're playing against FaZe, even Subliners. But FaZe is going to be tough because I think of just their strength in S&D. Like, I do think that LA Thieves can compete with them in respawns, and even win more respawns in the series. It's just the S&D, dude. It's something that I think is LA's weakest game mode, and it's FaZe's strongest. So they're gonna have to clutch up at the end of the day. I think they can win, I do, but they're gonna have to clutch up and really just be firing on all cylinders, I think, to have a decent shot at it.
So who ends up in winners finals?
You asking me? It's easy.
Y'all. Who do you think those?
I mean,
LA Thieves Empire, LA Thieves Subliners.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with
Subliners. Okay.
I think I'm gonna go with OpTic and FaZe. I feel like OpTic is gonna have a big win with beating that New York team. Basic answer is Dallas and FaZe. Okay, but I picked OpTic and FaZe. I just feel like stylistically, of all the top 4 teams, that FaZe is the worst match for LA Thieves. Even though they just got 3-0'd by Dallas, I feel like they can run it back and they can win that series. FaZe, though, like you said, even though I feel like they're 50-50 in respawns, they're such a huge underdog in the search and destroys every single one. I don't know. I feel like it's a really tough match. I mean, because obviously they can still win it. They're a top 4 team.
Like I think
the top 4 teams is the hardest match.
The Thieves can go toe to toe and beat OpTic, Subliners. Well, they already beat Subliners, but like OpTic and Empire in S&Ds. You know, so that's what makes those matchups a lot closer. Whereas FaZe, it's like, whoo, TJ is going to need to drop 15. Ken's going to need to drop. You know what I'm saying? They better be spreading, getting info. Word to Slasher, because if not, like
spread out, get info. Don't die. Get together.
So then, do you guys hold for the folks that you think are going to be in winners finals? Do you think we're also going to see those in grand finals, those same teams, or do you think there could be a mix-up in the losers bracket?
It's hard to predict that far down the line, but there can always be a mix-up in loser brackets. Especially, assume FaZe or Empire get upset in round 2. They're going to be hot by the time it gets to that point. Yeah. And once a team's that hot by the time, like it's hard to beat one of the top teams that's already rolling through.
I think it's more likely to happen now earlier in the season because as good as certain teams look, it's still so early. So the top teams really haven't mastered the game, the best way to play the game. So I think there's a good chance that you could see a team not in winners finals be in the grand finals. And realistically, it could be damn near any team, probably besides like Real Ravens. But no, I'm just kidding. But
sorry, London. That's tough.
You know, it's tough to say, like John said, just because I could see Subliners getting hot if they lose round 2. I could see Paris Legion even maybe pulling off some upsets, a couple 3-2s. You know, it's happened in the past.
You really want to see them there.
I do. No, but listen, hold up. Just a quick, down little history lesson. I know, John, you remember this. I think it was like the first event in Infinite Warfare. You remember Aches Team, Aches and Assault, C9? They won like 7. Second. Yeah, but they won like 7 round 11s in a row, or like game 5s in a row.
Something ridiculous. Yeah.
So like it's possible. You know, you clutch up during this week. You know, you might see yourself in the finals, but
it's possible.
It's possible. That's all I'm giving.
We'll have to wait and see. And next time we get together, gentlemen, that will be after the major, where we're going to talk about everything that happened. Does Paris make a run and end up in the grand finals, or is it something a little more traditional, like maybe a Dallas and Atlanta showdown? We will have to wait and see. I'm sure it'll be exciting. I love that major is kind of having this moment is back in terms of the structure of the league. But that'll be it for show number 1 for us. It's been such a pleasure. Enable Pacman, thank you so much for joining me on the Deserto CDL show. I'm super excited about next week. I think it'll be some great stuff. But until then, folks, something to chew on.